I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:05. Thank you all for coming. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Start with reading of the minutes. January 9th, 2024, meeting was called to order at 6 p.m. With the Pledge of Allegiance. Members present were Joel Chapman, Bill Savage, Jesse Wallingford, also Sean Corson, Diane Campbell, Lori Arsenal, Susan Runes, and Susan Strout. Members of the public attending included Cheryl Savage, Stacy Wallingford, Marcia Turcott, Doug Fournier, Brian Bullocks, Amy Corson, Terry Phillips, Hank Phillips, Jeff Boone, Wally Litchfield, Richard Estes, and Mark Silver. The minutes from December 12th meeting were read by Chapman. Needed amending. Amendments were funding for the heat pumps, etc. came from the Community Action Resilience Grant, with a balance for the heat pumps coming from Efficiency Maine. In addition, Mark Silva added that the swap shop was started by a group including Judy Bird and himself with a community foundation grant, and that Mary Standard was one of the first volunteers. Warrant number 12, checks written was $184,783.85. Receipts were $134,685.51. Percent of 2023 real estate taxes collected was at 75%. During open session, Cheryl Savage said the state offices were not open until noon on Wednesday due to the incoming storm. She suggested that the town office might consider a late opening. Also, Hank Phillips questioned what was going to be done with CEO Fred Collins not following through with the lack of septic system on Arthur Allen Road. Phillips wanted to know the time frame of that enforcement and who would spearhead that effort. Wallingford added that Brent Larson from the state had been working on the situation with the board. Chapman will call Larson to see where the process is currently. Wallingford continued that he and Collins are willing to help to train someone if there is a volunteer from our community that would like to go through courses to become a CEO. The position has not been advertised, but several CEOs from the area have been asked if they know of anyone who might be interested. Our issue report was none. Fred Collins was not present. Fire department report, Doug Fortier reported the tanker truck had been stickered and that $34,000 of the $38,000 King grant had been spent on equipment, including helmets and shields. Roads report, Sean Corson reported that he put down 15,000, how much? I got 15,000 tons.
No, probably dollars. Yeah.
Okay, of gravel.
No.
And everything is pretty good shape after the weekend storm. Chapman read a resident email that had been received at the town office. The email expressed appreciation for Corson and his prompt and effective assistance on Fields Hill. ACO report, Sean Corson reported no new animal incidences. Bulletin reports, MMA is offering training called the Elected Officials Workshop on Zoom on January 25th. All 3 select board members attended this same workshop in the same week as they were elected. A review of that workshop would be useful for the select board members, but none of them were available to attend this one. Diane Campbell will attend, and Chapman asked to see if they might be a recording. James McCarthy submitted the information that his current residency in Norway and his previous residence in Sumner were both listed on the records to receive a homestead exemption. With this correction, McCarthy is responsible for filing and paying a supplement to his tax bill in Sumner. Formal paperwork was was signed by the members of the select board and will be forwarded to the assessor. Municipal building plowing contract was awarded to Jeremy Johnson, was returned to the town office with Jeremy Johnson requesting that a section be removed and amended in that contract. He requested was to allow him to make or arrange for repairs of any damage that might be caused by plowing by his company. The arrangement of $120 per hour payment for time spent pushing back snowbanks as needed was also corrected. These amendments were approved with a motion by Wallingford, seconded by Chapman, and voted. Marianne Haxton updated the select board on the Community Resilient Partnership Grant. The heat pumps have been installed with all their jobs scheduled to install insulation, change the lighting, and update kitchen appliances. New business, GWI had made a request to set up a storage hut on the town property. The location is back behind the building. Information still needed to be discussed and worked out, such as how big a storage area space is needed, where on the property they are proposing to put the hut, and who is responsible for any damages. A member of the select board will contact the project manager, set up a time for that discussion. Many documents in the town office have passed their retention time. In past years, we have hired a shredding company to come and shred at the town office. An estimate was received from Shred on Site is between $150 and $200. Chapman made the motion to approve scheduling a date with Shred on Site. Motion was seconded by Savage and voted. Town responsibilities are covered by select board members at this time, and those tasks have been set up as roads with myself, Justin Wallingford, building maintenance, Bill Savage, general assistant, Joel Chapman, security response system starts with Joel Chapman and then works down the line to the rest of us. General assistance does offer training sessions. Campbell will see if any training are coming up, or if one can be arranged. Jeff Kuhn asked if the security system ever creates concern that someone was breaking into the building, or if there were ever a real security issue. The security company calls the designated person. If the alarm goes off, they will ask if the person wants the sheriff's office notified. Chapman will contact the security company to better understand the policy. The alarm was going off several times recently in the night. The company came to check the devices, found a faulty motion sensor and replaced. Old business, a job description has been created for the cleaning position. This position was this will be posted on the website. A resident has expressed interest in a planning board, and 2 people have inquired about school board appointments. The roads committee also has interest, residents including Steve Nowak, Pam Farr, Cliff McNeil. Updates on the swap shop will be included in the February 27th select board meeting. Don Berry is the temporary administrator. Upcoming events, unpaid 2023 taxes will be accruing interest as of February 1st, 2024. Dog licenses will increase by $25 late fee as of February 1st, 2024. The motion was made at 7:19 by myself, seconded by Savage, and voted. Select board minutes from January 9th, 2024, submitted by Susan Strout. You guys get all that? Any amendments other than the $15,000 of gravel, not 15,000 tons? Oh, good.
All set.
All right, I make a motion that we approve these minutes as amended.
A second.
All in favor? All right. So, warrant number 12, checks written was $124,497.28. Receipts of $75,688.65. Percent of 2023 real estate taxes collected is at 78%. Open session, does anyone have any topics that they would like to discuss for open session that may not already be on the agenda?
I guess mine is talking with Sean about the signs that are up on Black Mountain and Greenwood Road for the ATVs,
Yep.
and that they need to be taken down. And I talked to Margaret, just wanted to put it on the record that we are following up on an already existing decision by the town to not allow ATVs.
Yep, okay.
Those signs need to be taken down. He's trying to get them down.
All right. So you don't have anything else to discuss on that? Yep. All right, perfect. RSU 10 report.
I wasn't under the impression that there were 2 other people who were interested in this. That's what you just wrote in the minutes. Have you read that? There were 2 people
I did.
who were
I
interested?
know Katie Chase was interested. I don't know who the other person was.
Okay.
I haven't seen any written interest.
Okay. I was under the assumption that there were no people who were interested in the position, so I have submitted my willingness to serve in that role between now and our next election. Since I've been participating in the school board for the last year that Joel was on, I have a good understanding of what's going on in the background, and I also participated via Zoom to the school board meeting last night and realized that Buckfield is going to be undergoing an architect and engineer survey. A firm is going to be hired to come in and research expansion of that building. So that really solidified my decision that we probably need to have a seat at the table of discussion, because there's a massive building project in Mexico going on that is combining the elementary schools there. And so that's already currently taking place. They just broke ground on that. So land is cleared and we've got equipment there. So to be undertaking an expansion project at Buckfield High School is also going to have financial implications for our town. So between that, and I know that people have varied opinions on what should be happening with the 6th graders moving up to the high school, which is really what seems to be pushing this. I know parents were interested in 21 about not wanting to pursue that. Wasn't really paying attention to the school district at that point in time. But when it came back up, there was a parent forum in November, and I talked to another school board member today to find out what is the feeling in the community about the 6th graders moving up. And she said that it is right now a 50-50 split. So I would be interested to learn more about what people in the community think about 6th graders moving up. But I would also be very interested to know where this money is going to come from when we are in the midst of a building project in Mexico. Even though there was this massive grant given from the state to build that, there's still an additional, I cannot remember the number, but that is required of the taxpayers to fill in that gap. So this is the budget season for the school district, and I feel like we need some representation for the taxpayer, and the families need representation. So with all that, do you have any questions for me?
I guess you said that they've hired an engineering firm.
They
Is this a
have,
feasibility process, or?
so my understanding is that in December, mid-December, a RFQ, which is a request for qualifications, was posted on the district website for any interested architect engineer firms to please get in touch with the district with their qualifications and other projects they might have been involved, and maybe costs were, I don't know, I didn't look at the entire document, So that was posted in December, and since then, as of last night's board meeting, they have heard back from 3 firms, and they are going to be interviewing them on February 1st and determining who it is they're going to go with. And in the time between now, or February 1st, and June 30th, there's going to be a study that's carried out by this firm on the various options of expanding Buckfield, looking at the space in Hartford Sumner. My understanding is that we did have room at Hartford Sumner, but then the pre-K program came into the community. I don't know the ins and outs of how, why, where that happened, but since they are now being housed at Hartford Sumner, there is a space issue. That's my understanding. So this firm will come in and give their estimates on a variety of different ways that this expansion could go. But from the sounds of things, they're looking to move them to Buckfield and make the expansion happen over there.
So do we know what precipitated the RSU saying we need to expand? Is it the moving the 6th graders up, or is it
The elementary school doesn't, my understanding is the elementary school doesn't have enough room, now that the preschool is there. Between the preschool and all the other kids, that's why we have the trailers. So I'm sure it's to try to get rid of the trailers, and to do that, you have to move the 6th graders up to the high school, but then you're still missing room, right? I'm sure that's where it's coming from.
In 2021,
Whether I agree or
the
not,
pre-K
that's where it's
program,
coming from.
does anybody know if the pre-K program was there in 2021?
Yes.
Because it was. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that,
because my kids went to the preschool and they're 19 and 20.
okay. My understanding is that kind of precipitated the push over to Buckfield, so.
I vaguely remember that the student population in Sumner Elementary and Buckfield was pretty flat for the last 2-3 years. So, I mean, I guess
I don't, my son's girlfriend teaches there. And so what I understand is that the younger kids, there's a lot of them. So over the last couple of years, like there's 3 3rd grades, there's 3 2nd grades, they're looking at 3 4th grades now, whereas there's only been 2. So somewhere these kids are coming from, I'm not sure where, but.
I do
But I
remember
also,
in one of the board meetings that Joel was at, they did talk about how, I guess it was fall a year ago, they were talking about enrollments, and enrollments at Hartford Sumner were up. By how much, I don't know.
I stopped at the Hartford school to check in when we needed a special town meeting. So that was probably last fall, maybe late last fall. And had conversations with them then, and they said that respectively Sumner and Buckfield had increased their student population by about 50 each.
wow,
Yeah.
so that's 100 kids.
That makes a big difference. Yeah.
In a small school. I mean, it's probably not a lot to Wilson High School, but.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful for us to know when this engineering firm comes back and makes a report, so that we can make sure that it's at a board meeting and that everybody has a chance to comment, really.
That would definitely be my
Make a mark.
interest to follow up on that, and I agree.
Do you know, has there ever been any talk of the high school gang and track and field?
I can speak to this too. My daughter was involved in the track program, and they did need to go over to Levitt to use the Levitt field. And in the following year, when she was not on the team anymore, they were no longer doing that, and they were trying to work something out, I believe, with Mountain Valley. So I am not entirely sure on that, but it always required traveling, parents shuttling kids over to whichever facility. Where that stands at this point, I don't know, but I do know they did have a track team last spring, and we've got some competitive athletes that are actually in that and who ran indoor track this winter privately. So that would be great, and that would be a great expansion if that is in fact something that was discussed. But I'm very on board with you, Marianne, I'm sorry, to just have a better look at what the costs really are going to be and what the options they have, and I would like for the families to be able to really hear all of those options.
I guess I would hope, or suggest, that when you go to the board meeting, that we say, we want, because it's our school,
Mhm.
it's not up there.
Right.
That they have a public meeting here before they make any decisions.
I agree.
The school board thinks they can just go ahead and do it,
I know.
but that
right there
since
with
it's
you.
our school.
I agree. I agree.
Well, I make a motion that we accept you as the RSU 10 representative for the town of Sumner.
Until the next election.
Until.
It's like
That
5
was-
months.
That can go into the minutes.
I second that. It sounds like we're being represented.
And probably sooner than later, if we could draft up the paperwork so that she can be sworn in sometime this week.
I can do that tonight if you like. Did you vote on that and agree?
If,
Yeah, all in favor?
All right.
We'll take a bit to dig up the paperwork and look at it for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for doing.
All right, thank you very much. CEO LPI report, Fred Collins. The update on Arthur Allen Road via email from Brent Larson to Fred is that the Arthur Allen Road has met minimum requirements for the state. And that puts us in compliance, so they met minimum requirements for our town. So that is the update from Brent through Fred. I wasn't actually able to speak to Brent personally.
Richard?
Another question. When you talk about sewer systems and everything, at the end of Black Mountain Road and the Greenwood Road, the guy that moved that shit he's been down across that field there, hooked his sewer pipe up, dug a trench and dropped the sewer pipe into it and just covered it back up in his gray water. That's a little more serious situation than on the Arthur Allen Road, which is behind Labrador Pond, running out into that swamp there. How many years do you think it's gonna take using that trailer when he's got a porta potty there that's tipped up on its side? He ain't using that, I don't believe. And he moved in a camper there, and I don't believe he's using that either. And running all this gray water right out there with no septic tank and no, just a pipe. And cover the pipe back up. Now, there ought to be something done about that.
I know that particular site does have a site plan. I'll have to check.
Yeah, but it
with
don't
Fred.
matter. If he ain't abiding by his site plan
I
and having a septic tank in there and a sewage system
Right.
and everything, he's not going by his plan.
Right.
They ought to go and cut his pipe off and put a plug in it, say, mister, you better be using your backups out there,
Right.
instead of letting it run towards Labrador Pond.
Right. I will speak with Fred on that regard as well.
So has it been, like, gone to planning board about that particular,
Not to my knowledge.
First I've heard.
so that's where it goes.
Yep.
Who is the individual?
Steve Ellis.
Oh.
Jesse,
Yes.
who inspected, Nikki's,
I
outhouse?
believe Brent Larson, but I'm not 100% sure. I could not get a direct answer on that one.
So it wasn't Fred,
No.
it was not Fred. Okay, who else?
Well, we know that the site visit, you were in on the site visit.
I was on a site visit there, yes.
Now, Brent was there,
Yeah.
Fred was there,
Yep.
Sherry was there, and
Yep.
yourself, right?
Yep.
And I'm not questioning your statement, but what I can tell you is my interpretation, and I've had some advice on this,
Mhm.
is that they don't comply with an outhouse, period. They just don't. And the proximity to that stream and that, an adjacent property down to Pleasant Pond is seeing refuge for a long time going down there. The notification form, even our own notification form, is very specific about having a sign off by the inspector, Fred Collins, on a septic plan, and then a review and then sign off for occupancy. we know that they didn't go along with the process. They put in a notification to build, they were rejected, and he just did it anyways.
Right.
And, you know, like Rich is pointing out, there's a perfect example where if the select board is responsible for getting on this. I mean, if you go on the reference library for the state of Maine and get definition of select board, it says protection of life, property, et cetera, including plowing and all that other stuff. But property and environment. I mean, the CDC should be all over this,
So,
as far as I'm concerned.
so the designer of the plan said that that was acceptable and it was done properly. It's a-
Well, I'm gonna be on the phone with Brett Lawson, and if I have to, I'll go back to December if I have to. But the bottom line is, if he signed off on that, he's not doing his job either.
Well, it's been approved. And supposedly they're stating that it is an approved system at this point. It's meeting the criteria of design.
Even the
So
ordinances, our own ordinance says they're not.
So if you, I mean, that's as far as we can go with that. I mean, Jesse's done the legwork, and this site was approved. The design, they're saying that the design has been accepted as a proper installation. So I don't know what else you expect us to do as a town, but
So this is a planning board issue because it was an approval that went through, the request for information was through the planning board.
yes.
And the work with Brett was, and Fred, was through the planning board. And
That's correct.
We felt it was not adequate based on Phillips's concerns. So it went to Brett. And so my question is, if we would so choose, the planning board could say, can we appeal their decision? Is there, do we have a right for the town to say, we're not comfortable with that decision? So that's, I guess that's the
Yeah,
question.
well, that's sort of
EPA now.
beyond me, because, I mean, if you have a licensed state, planning,
Right.
you're right, if you wanna take him to task, then, I don't know if, at some point, this gets beyond a select board issue,
Right.
and should go back to the planning board for them to follow through with the concerns.
I think it's the documentation process that either the planning board or somebody has to say, you know, it was approved, but it's not being done. So they approved the process, and it was supposed to be.
Are you talking about the Arthur Allen Road or the?
Arthur Allen Road, it's going back there. That if it's, they approved the system, but they're not using the system. So if there's documentation that says they're inappropriately using the system, that would be something we could appeal. We could say,
Does that go
This
to
isn't ours.
our own personal appeals board? Is that where that goes?
no. My understanding of planning board is that it's decisions made by a planning board that the resident disagrees with, goes to the appeals board. So I don't think so. But, so I guess my question to the Phillips is, can they verify that this system is not being appropriately used? That would be our only basis for appeal, for saying, you know, you approved it, you said it was a good system, but that system is not being enacted or implemented or whatever. That would be our only basis for saying, you know, you guys have to do something different because you said it's okay, but they're not doing it.
Right. Richard?
I think it ought to be brought up, probably through either the planning board or through you people, that if you get a case like this again, it ought to be mandatory, they at least put in a holding tank, you know, and then set your outhouse on that, you know, if they want a cold butt, let them, you know, and put in a holding tank.
Right.
And then they-
That is-
and then
that
they-
is one of
and
the
then
options.
they have to have it pumped, but I can't remember, because it's been so many years since I was involved in sewage systems years ago with my brother, especially the one over there across from the Black Mountain Road. I mean, if he was approved that don't give him approval to run his gray water out there to Labrador Pond in that wetland.
Right.
And
We
just
would
run
need, yeah.
And run a pipe out there, then cover the pipe up, and all of a sudden put skirting up to cover it up,
Right.
you know?
We would need, I guess,
That's
If
fine.
you're gonna do that, he ought to be
Planning.
mandatory, at least have a holding tank there, and keep his holding tank pumped out, instead of letting him doing that. Just because it's such wet ground there. I mean, that ground there, you're gonna have to completely build a surge system on top of the ground there.
right.
Yeah.
I know there's an approved plan, so we don't determine as a planning board or as a select board what type of system goes where. That's a site evaluator that makes that decision. So whatever and they're trained and licensed by the state. So whatever they could approve a vault, if that's what that's considered, a vault type system where it's an outhouse that has a vault that has a pump schedule that has to go with it, basically a contract with.
Absolutely, just like around the pond or anything.
Right, and then.
But if you take that case over there though, I mean, that's altogether a different story. He never put in a sewer tank there or anything. I've been hauling shavings from Irvin's all
Yeah.
last fall. I mean, he dug a ditch out there with a little tractor.
Right,
Finally put in a sewer pipe, no septic tank there to hold it to nothing, run it out there, and that's it. And then put some skirting over it to cover it up, so hopefully nobody would say anything.
He should have gotten an inspection from Fred on that before that was covered,
Absolutely.
so.
I'm
it's,
surprised nobody through the town said anything, the people that travel that road. I mean, it's just,
I wasn't even aware that he had done that.
oh,
So,
I think I'm not defending any situations or anything, but I do
Yeah.
think one of the trenches that he dug was it's basically like a moat, and he's trying to get water off of his property because of because his mobile home is stuck in a mud hole, essentially. And maybe you've seen something that I haven't, I don't have
well, when
any.
you look in underneath there, I come by there a couple different times there, 2 different days apart, and you see a 4-inch solid pipe going up to the bottom of that trail and digging a ditch out there, probably 100 feet out there toward
Yeah.
that field and letting your gray water run out there or whatever else, you know. I mean, it's different if you put a septic tank in there and then his tank pump when it gets full.
Right,
If he wants to do that until he gets situated enough and gets money enough ahead, I mean, that's fine, I don't care about that. But when you get talking about nitty gritty and everything and letting all your gray water run out there and it's running right towards the pond, right there, and the water table is so low there, that's in floodplains, right there. I think if you look on the map, I think you'll see that's in floodplain.
It's a completely maintenance
yeah, I mean, I guess make an official complaint to the planning board and to Fred.
Yeah.
I'll make a note of it too.
yeah, or just contact Fred and have him go over and do an inspection.
Yeah,
Because
what's
if
he gonna
has-
do?
If he has a plan,
It has to start,
What's he gonna do, ask you some questions and not do his job?
well,
I mean, I've mentioned that before to a place right across from where Sean's father lives, out there on Pleasant Pond, just because they mixed gravel in with it, because he pulled a stunt on the plumbing inspector, had him come, and that guy passed it, which has never been passed because the water table is so high there in that yard. I know that from a fact, from going out through there for years and years and years, you know, and mixing gravel in, just because his sewer was coming on top of the ground. Well, that should have been stopped right there. Say, look, buddy, you're gonna put a sewage system on top of the ground by law, you ain't getting away with this.
well, if he
And
hasn't
I-
done it right, he's not in compliance, and Fred doesn't act on it, then we'll have to,
Well, I talked with Fred on it a couple of times, and he almost acted like I was trying to make trouble. I said, that ain't it, Fred. I said, the only thing is right there next to that pond, I said, there's a brook just a few feet from where that guy's got his sewer running, because he didn't wanna have to put in a pump, and didn't wanna have to put a drainage field on top of the ground, because it's gonna cost a lot of money. Well, that's where I said, either you or the state ought to come here every month or two and do a water sample, come in next to that brook right there, run in beside that camp going into that pond. Because everywhere else you go and you deal with a sewage system in there, you would have to put a sewage system back so far and put a pump in and pump it up the hill. And I know another case, which is next to my wife's camp. The guy bought a camp here a year ago. And then he finally found out after he bought the camp off David Baker, now he's gonna have to put in a sewage system up back of his camp and put a pump in, which is gonna cost him a lot of money. Because the old sewage system is gone now, see? up. When these guys are trying to pull this stuff over on an inspector, you know, and if the inspector really doesn't know what he's doing, he should have never let that pass out there on Paul Cox's land. Because the water table runs so high there, it comes off that side hill. I mean, there's no question about it.
I don't have any knowledge of that one. All I can say is if something's there, it's grandfathered, and if it's replaced, it will have to be done by a site evaluator. That would
That's
be.
all it was ever at that camp, was an outhouse.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, you have to make official complaint on those, and yeah, that's where it'd have to
I
start.
understand a lot of people think live and let live. Well, I think that's fine unless it impinges on the environment, which affects us all, or it impinges on the quality of life of your neighbors. There's got to be some accountability. The planning board knew he applied for this build, and either it was incomplete, because if you look at the forms, it asks for septic, it asks for whether it's resident, year-round, or it's seasonal, and they have different requirements. The state law says, and even in our own ordinance, it says that whenever there's a difference between a town regulation and a state regulation, the stronger regulation will apply.
Well,
And the planning board should have gone to the select board and said, what do we do about this? This guy is thumbing his nose at you, and he's compromising the environment.
Well,
I mean, I won't go into details, but they were dumping a lot of stuff for a long time before they got their outhouse.
I think if you go back on the minutes for the planning board, you'll see that this has been addressed, and there's a paper trail. I mean, we were at the point where we were fining them. We sent up a letter that they would be fined so much a day. I don't have all the specifics
I
on
don't
it.
think that letter ever went out.
But,
I don't think there was never a letter, because they didn't want to pay for an attorney.
No, the letters went out.
the letters
They were
went out,
certified
we
letters.
did, and it did go to the town attorney.
I mean, for what it's worth, I love, and I believe that the neighbors on Arthur Allen deserve to see a copy of this email directly from Brent. And having that in hand would be a help if we decide to do
Well, you
anything.
can request that. You know, I suppose, there's no reason why you can't request that.
I'd like to see it, yeah.
But I don't know where we fit into that mix right now, because apparently he has done what he's been required to do and has been approved. So whether he is, whether he did
The
the
local
design right up
inspector
to...
approves something, but then you get an appeal to the state can come in and say no. And I'm shocked to hear Brent would approve it.
I guess that's sort of beyond me. I think we ought to move on.
Are you gonna contact Fred or the planning board in regards to the other properties you were concerned about?
I will if you want me to. No fault me today.
That's where it needs to start, yeah.
I just kinda wonder though, you know, if this guy's all been approved for a plan and everything, at least why hasn't there been a tank at least in place, you know?
Start asking
And,
questions.
Yeah, I'd start with the planning board. I know like notifications, they have a year to start, basically, and obviously nothing's been finished or signed off on.
when was his time start?
Yeah, I was on the planning board, it was sometime, because we had pushed it back a couple of times, on both, his wife came in, I don't remember the exact date, I believe sometime last spring, but I'm not positive.
You know, his time is running out then.
I'm not following very well. We keep saying his, but we talked about 3 different properties. So
Yeah.
you originally-
Currently, we're talking about the Ellsman property at the end of Black Mountain.
Okay, that's Ellsman property. And then Hank, your property, your Arthur Allen. And that you're talking about the state being involved. You're talking about the planning board of the Black Mountain property?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to help fill Joel in on what's going on.
It's Greenwood.
Yes, Mary Ann.
That's Greenwood Road, not Black Mountain.
So, in the past, the part of the process of working with the planning board is that the planning board would come on a quarterly basis and meet with the select board. And I don't think that has taken place
No.
in the last, at least in the last 6 months, and probably not in the spring. So that could be a way to bring these two places together
Right, connected.
and ask for a specific report on these 3 properties and, you know, an update from what they know and what you know and what these guys know. And then at least all of us be on the same page to know what's going on. And then if there's actions that they have potential to make, or you want them to make, this would be the place to put that forward. So, another meeting, not the one where you're talking about the swap shop, sometime soon.
Yeah, right.
To get them to join in for the discussion. It's been a while.
What was the other road? No, the other road. What's the other road we talked about?
Where'd Doug go?
All right, we'll skip over Doug. She's just coming back. Roads report, Sean Corson.
Roads, well, there ain't much to talk about again. I guess everything's going all good with the sand and salt. I just looked at the budget, I guess we're still standing real good with that. Seems like I've been going through a lot of it, but guess we haven't been too bad. I am gonna be real concerned though about our roads. They are getting stove up bad this year between the thorn and the plowing when it's not frozen. I have a lot of potholes out there. I'm waiting for a good time for it to warm up. Maybe it'll be this end of this week to do some on the Bonnie Road. Maybe just put some gravel in them to get by with. But yeah, our roads are getting stove up real bad.
Yeah, lower Sumner Hill too.
That is gone. That one don't bother me because it's going in, so
It's going anyway.
It's the
Yeah.
first project in the spring.
that's the first project we're gonna do. Yeah.
Just to tag on to that, for the roads committee, we have had 6 or 8 people express interest in that, so the 3 of us will kind of, I guess, probably just go through that list and come up with what we feel will be a good team.
Yep.
And we'll get that going. We'll schedule a meeting in the next couple of months probably, or sooner, to get that rolling for those people that work with you guys. So, just in addition. Any animals other than the one they just dealt with?
No, animal control's been real quiet. Yeah, I had one call on the Burrows Road, and went up and checked on it again, and all the cats are being taken care of properly. I didn't see no starvation, none of them cold. They're living just as good as I am.
If you want to go up and pick up that dead pig, I'll split it with you.
Was anybody hurt in that? That's
Oh,
what I'm concerned
anyone
about.
hurt?
No.
Just the
Pick
pig?
the pig.
Yeah, pig didn't make it. Airbags did deploy, so the guy's probably gonna have a hurt face a little bit.
Somebody local?
I didn't recognize them.
Oh, yeah.
One for Living Road.
Now, was that the real big pig, the 200-300 pounder?
It's black one.
Okay, no.
That's all I know. Like a bear.
I know I've been pushing
Forms, reports, and correspondence. Abatement of 2023 taxes. Dennis Byron lots taken out of subdivision category. Signed recommitment of 2023 and 2024 taxes.
So you guys have approvals to sign. You have to sign both of those.
Okay.
This is a letter explaining that. So you want to help me out?
Sure, there's an abatement and a supplement. Dennis Byron had his subdivision removed from the subdivision category
Yep.
in the spring.
That's Estes Road, right?
Last spring.
Last spring,
And it didn't get to the assessors, and so it was assessed as a subdivision.
Okay.
So we have to abate all of the taxes on those individual pieces and then supplement the piece that they all belong to.
Okay.
So there were 12 lots?
I think so.
Yeah.
There were backpackers on that also, I believe, but does that have to be, into the calculations at all?
No, that, it's a separate year. We're not telling them his taxes are paid, we're just reassessing the lot as a lot rather than 12 different smaller pieces. But you're right to assume that the owner's tax would get paid first, if there was a payment involved.
Sign it on this one. Sign both copies of each one?
Did I miss one?
All right, while Bill's doing that, there's a MTCCA webinar on town meetings, Maine Town and City Clerk Association, February 6th and 7th, 9 to 12:30 via Zoom. Are you all
Excuse me,
attending? What?
I think you skipped
I skipped.
signing the,
For that anyway, because we don't have it back from
oh, we didn't get back, never mind.
Oh, did I miss?
No,
Nope, it's okay.
Only 2024.
Diane's going. Yeah.
Diane, you're gonna be zooming in on this?
Yes.
February 28th.
February 6th and
6
7th.
and
What's that
7.
say?
9 through 12:30, February 6 and 7.
There's another one on the 28th.
Oh, okay.
She might have given you one.
That's all right. Yep, this is just for the 28th,
Okay.
and this is, says one time only. I'll see if I can sit in on this.
Perfect.
New business, guardrail on Tool Hill Road. Guess I'm ignorant to what's going on with the guardrail on Tool Hill Road. I don't
It's
know
the
why-
one, it's the one that the school bus hit last winter.
Right,
Right on the corner of, on the bridge.
Yeah, we were just wondering if anybody had contacted the school
I have
district.
emailed him and talked to him and everything. I actually, then he called me back and said he couldn't find anybody to do it in the area. So I was riding around Norway one day and I saw a truck doing guardrail. So I took a picture of it, sent it to him, and he said he would get a hold of them and he said that.
What was that fellow's
Thanks for
name
that.
again?
Dylan,
Dylan. It took a while to get my gate paid for too,
over a year.
over a year, back into our gate.
And he's head of transportation,
Right.
the fellow I talked to, so,
Could be a school board issue.
yeah.
All right,
Well,
we got a
Joel did say-
representative now.
Joel did say he was gonna talk to him.
Oh, that's right, I do remember that, now
Yeah.
you say that, when he was still on the.
I mean, it ain't a big deal, it just don't look good.
Right, right, and it should fix it, sure. Again, it's just listed what our responsibilities are covered by the select board members, so that's just on there.
I have one
Oh,
more.
I'm sorry?
You asked me, or Joel asked me last time, were there any others, and I it slipped my mind that we have a representative on the Maine Waste to Energy, which is the facility that takes all of our waste from the transfer station for disposal or for burning, actually.
Yep.
And that is a committee that I served on. So, and meets like twice a year, but I think I forwarded to you guys the last minutes. It's John King, who is the executive director at Maine Waste Energy. But I'm still getting the notices, so we need to get you, whoever's gonna be that person to go to that. Have you been getting the notices from Maine Waste Energy?
You sent it to us, email?
Yeah, I forwarded maybe last month. They send monthly financials and notices when the executive committee is going to meet. I got one not too long ago, probably last week when I wasn't.
If you could resend, I don't see it on mine, so if you
Okay.
could resend that to
I
me,
will resend it.
I'll get our contact information to them.
So they meet annually, they meet to approve the budget, which sets our rate, what is charged the towns, the member towns. So we're a member of Maine Waste Energy. And that's what, we had a bond that we paid out a long time ago, and so we are actually owners of Maine Waste Energy.
Okay.
One of a dozen.
All right.
Is Doug gonna come back in, or is he here?
Doug's here. Doug's right here. Good idea. Doug, what's the report on the fire department?
Well, so far we got engine and tanker all stickered and ready to go. Now we're trying to get tires for this, hopefully Thursday, so we can get that one stickered and then we'll be back in service. And we got the forestry grant, put in for 2 pagers and 4 radios. The grant, the forestry service is gonna pay half of that, we're gonna pay the other half. It's pretty much it.
1,200 is our share of that, if I remember correctly.
Who's doing your grants for it? Brian and I did the forestry grant, I did the, Stephen King grant.
Wow. You've done well.
Mike is no longer with us, he's being reinstated as chief in West Paris, so he doesn't really have time to work over here and do that too. So.
Yep. So we just need tires on this truck and that will be inspected?
That's the plan, yes.
Yep. And then everything will be online for trucks at that point?
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you keep mentioning that tires are on, like, where are we at in the tires purchasing? Are we still looking for bids for the old tires to be replaced, or?
Well, that was another thing I was gonna bring up, it's good thing you mentioned it, because I forgot. Mrs. Berry had said there's a farmer in town that wants the old tires. Don Berry's wife. I don't know who it is, somebody down by Tool Hill Road.
So they're going to purchase the tires?
I do not know. All I know is we don't have to pay to get rid of them, that's true.
So where are we at with the buying of the new tires?
It was supposed to be in tonight's grant, and
It is.
someone made it there.
Yeah, on tonight's warrant.
Oh, perfect, great, good to hear.
So they're all scheduled and everything to be put on.
Well, I was waiting for a check, so I've been home to the schedule.
Yep.
Perfect.
Can I ask a question also?
Sure.
So has the fire department received any update from the district attorney's office?
Not on my end. I haven't heard anything from
You guys
Brian.
are all gone.
Brian will be back in 3 minutes, he can probably answer to that.
But, well, I, having been concerned about it from my time on the select board, called the district attorney's office, spoke with Tammy, who is the victim advocate, and asked the question, what is the status and what's the update? And they told me that the case would be going to grand jury mid-February. And then I asked, had there been any information sent to the select board? And they said, it's the fire department who is considered the plaintiff in this situation.
Yes.
But the fire department is part of the town, so I think we need to make sure that if you receive anything, that these guys get notified about it. So the update.
Yeah, I think as far as all the updates we've received and called on, is that it's still just waiting for indictment from the grand
Yeah,
jury.
and-
And it just keeps getting pushed back because
And
of
last
case
I
law.
heard, it would be April.
That she said in February.
Right, and I'm in contact with the same person, she said it could be into April. So, I'm just.
I got the pleasure of serving on the grand jury, right when we moved here, and they meet twice a month. 2 days every 2 months, and if there's a snowstorm on one of those days, everything just gets pushed back. If anything comes up, they just push it back, and it's, so,
They triage it,
yeah.
you know,
yeah,
for
it's,
the seriousness of the crime, for the seriousness.
So, anyways, it takes a little bit to get through that, yeah. Anyways,
The notice will come to them, not to you guys.
we're on the contact list for most people too, I would think.
Tammy's been contacting me.
Okay, good.
And I've been on contact with,
But-
Justin Brown. Yeah, Deputy Brown, Lieutenant Brown, sorry, it's not Lieutenant, Brown also, in regards to this, so. She reminds me I'm gonna have to call him for something else anyways. Okay, old business, GWI update. Mary Ann Paxton.
Bill and I have had some conversation around this over the last week. And I had a direct phone conversation with Derek Gagnon, who is our project manager. And then there's another gentleman that Bill has heard from around the hut question. And I don't know if
That's
you had-
Thomas Gallant.
Thomas Gallant? Okay. And I heard from, so I have a report that I did up, well, 2 things. I spoke with Derek, last 2 weeks ago, and we had a phone conversation, and he followed up with an email that I forwarded to these guys. And then, because this has been a long process. We started working with Maine West in 2017 about getting high-speed internet. I don't know if any of you were part of the process when we were trying to get a grant. You filled out a survey as a pre-subscription to taking internet if GWI got a grant. So I did up kind of a summary sheet and shared it with these guys. And I think it would be helpful if we could put that up on the website, if you're okay with that. It kind of runs the history back from 2017 up to now. And I got an answer from Derek today that the grant that GWI finally was finalized with the State Maine Connectivity Authority is $4.6 million. So that money comes out of federal funds for the infrastructure grant, And it is money that we don't have to do anything with. It is no cost to us, other than the process that Bill has been working with Mr. Blunt about where the hub for the system would be. And Derek is willing to work and come meet with us as he's the whole project manager for the GWI project. And the other piece of information that I asked Derek about was, I have First Light. Do all of you have First Light internet? Do any of you have a First Light connection that's under a contract?
No.
We're all at will, pretty much. So when GWI comes in and runs by your property, you have the option of taking which service you want. And there is also a summary sheet that when we were looking to do internet high speed, GWI had better rates and better customer service to offer us. It's a Maine company, and not an international company, not out of state. So when the committee was working on it, felt that GWI was a really good choice for us. And then First Light came in and did what it has done, is run through and put in internet. Because they kind of messed with the process at the state level for GWI and delayed their process of getting approved, which I don't find business practice. But, so we will have competition when GWI comes in, and you will have anyone who has internet and still has that process, has the power to have internet through GWI, you will have a choice.
Is this GWI state-run or is it a
Private
private
company, but it's a B Corp, and it's been involved for as long as, before we had internet at the schools and libraries, they were instrumental in running helping the systems come into being that serviced schools and libraries across the state. And that was back in 20 years ago. So it's a company that's here, gonna stay here, local run, so that's what's.
I've talked to Thomas about, it first came in as a storage hut, but it's not, it is,
Actual,
yeah, it's an actual linking hub. I think one of the things that they're looking for is they need to connect Buckfield with West Paris. And to do that, they're gonna have to come through Sumner. And so that is part of their interest in doing this. And I think that,
So this may be something separate from
talk
our
to-
grant.
pardon?
This could be, then that project could be separate from the grant that GWI
The
received
grant
to serve us
GWI
up.
did, right, and I've done a little bit of research on that. And their rates are a little bit lower with GWI, not a significant amount as far as I can see, but anyway, I've talked to Thomas, he'd like to come and make his bid. So I think that we need to get him on the agenda. And I've also contacted First Light. And the person was,
Brent Hadley?
it was Patrick Conklin. And just a brief explanation of what he had told me, because he's not available right now, but he would like to come at the same time when we have GWI here, so we can get opposing views on what's going on with this. And he stated that when First Light came in, First Light didn't come in on a grant. They paid this out of pocket to get us connected. I didn't know there was a conflict between them cutting GWI out of the picture. That's something that we can address. But, and they made the connections to the homeowners free. They did free connections. So that was part of his, he said, we didn't come in there on a grant. We didn't take any monies from anybody. We did it on our own dime. And so I think it would be good to have them both together if we can set a time on the agenda for them to come in and speak to us, and we can get both points of view.
So that would be Derek Gagnon is the project manager.
Derek Gagnon, right, I've got that here, and it was Tom
Galant's
Galant
asking
that,
about the hut.
is asking about the hut. Yeah, and I've spoke with him. Yeah, and I've spoke with him. And he said that, and I said, well, what's the benefit to the town gonna be for having a hub located on our property? And he said, free internet for the town. And I said, wow, free internet? No, he said, I mean the town office. Wow, that's gonna be the benefit for GWI at least as they're proposing now for having that hut on our site. And I mentioned that to Mr. Coughlin of First Light, and he goes, wow. He said, you know, that's, you better think twice about that, he said, because you're opening a huge can of worms, because they pay dearly for their outsites.
This is from the competition, you have to realize that.
Well, I'm
First
saying,
Light-
I'm willing to
Yeah, that you need to
to
have.
see both
But
points of
these
view.
are two separate entities. First Light is proprietary phone service, and GWI is a company that has to get a grant to offer us and to offer folks who don't have internet or who have internet at a rate that would be different. So it's not making a choice for GWI to come in. GWI has a grant and is working the process.
I
to be here. So
understand
it's not
that.
like, it's not either or.
Yeah, but I think you're talking more about like having a hut on the property.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
because
Yes.
there's, like, if something happens, somebody breaks into this building, who's liable?
Yeah.
And those are all the questions.
Those are all the questions
The
that we
comings
have
and
to
goings,
ask.
the trucks that are going to be coming. the
They're
township.
gonna be, they're not gonna be huge trucks that are coming from GWI, maybe a bucket truck, but mostly vans when they're servicing the connections and whatever. There'll be a generator associated with it. They gave me a 10 by 10 footprint, but sent me drawings of a 12 by 22. So,
Yeah, this, the
Yeah.
top
Yeah,
land.
competition is okay, is good,
Yeah,
right? Like,
competition's
that's
great.
great, but the HUD thing is what, a little
And,
concerning.
and I think that it would be great to have both points of view here, and, so that we can make that decision.
So, Derek asked me to let him know how the meeting went tonight, so what I will share with him is that they're interested in having a time. If you
Yeah,
have a
sure.
suggestion of when that would be, that they would be present.
Yep, yep. You put on the
Sandy,
agenda.
and excuse me, part of what GWI will be doing though is offering fiber to those areas where First Light will not offer it.
Correct.
If you want higher speed. So that's one of the offerings.
I just would like a little clarification, Mary Ann. In 2017, there was a grant that was awarded to us to do what?
In 2017, we as a town voted to participate, well, there was a committee that started up saying, we want to have high-speed internet here, and all of us just had dial-up.
Yeah.
I mean, and until, let's see, it wasn't this past summer, but the summer before was the first time there was an option for fiber to be in, so that's 21, right?
Well, I just got it this spring, so.
Yeah. So in 2017, we began, and that's what would be explained, a little bit explained in this handout, is that we participated in a collaboration in Maine West that was all of the towns and surrounding, and talked about what are our options to getting high-speed internet. Part of the question that the whole state's been addressing for these past 7 years is how to have that happen. And through our collaboration, we learned about Axiom and GWI as what they were doing statewide. We went to workshops, had committee meetings, met 3 or 4 times with First Light, and we're told, no, we're not, you know, it's not on our plan for the next couple of years. We tried to do a 3-town effort, Hartford, Hebron, and Sumner, and tried to work out getting a grant that would be for all 3 towns, and that didn't fly. Coughlin was involved in that process, and so we then decided, we had a meeting with the chief operating officer, which was Karim Durdag of GWI. He came here and he met with us, and this is what we can offer you. We will make a grant. They applied to USDA, Rural Development, for a grant, and it was awarded to us, a $7 million grant for us and the 3 towns. And we went to someplace, we went out to Aroostook, and the governor presented the grants. And then the process of GWI working with USDA as a private company was unique. USDA only worked with public entities. And so the kind of things they were requiring of GWI were unacceptable to them. As a private company, the kinds of restrictions that were put on, so they ended up rescinding the $7 million grant. They came back to us and said, we're not gonna leave you high and dry. We will work with you to try and get a grant through the state funding. And then they did through Maine Connectivity Authority, and that grant because what First Light was doing currently, and I don't understand all the politic in that, but that grant was delayed for a period of time, and so finally, they got the go-ahead for this 4.6 million. And then they could move ahead with doing all the pole approvals and all the stuff they had to get from CMP and from First Light. And they've been working on this for 18 months. And their hope is that they would have internet running by the fall of '24. So this has been, you know, a long process, to the point where we had committee members who ended up getting First Light and said, I don't need to be on the committee anymore because I've got internet. So it was down to, well, I wouldn't give up. Even though after I got First Light internet, I still think that there are significant portions of our town that still need to have internet that may not be offered by First Light. Although First Light has come in and done it anyway, even though they say they're not doing it by themselves, but they have done it around the horn. They have not been forthright. They never communicated directly with us about their plans, and I don't find that particularly helpful.
All right.
So I will look forward to the time when they can come and talk about it.
Sounds like that's two different meetings, one about the hut and then one with First Light.
No, it could be the same time because the hut was discussed with First Light, and they did want to have comments on that because being offered just free internet for the town facility was, they didn't think that they thought that was really sort of a low-ball sort of thing for rental for the space.
All right, we get that one covered?
So I'm just hopefully let me know when you want to suggest that meeting.
I know that Tom wanted to do it pretty soon.
Yeah, we're pretty jammed up on the next one because of about the last meeting in February.
Well, isn't that your?
Second meeting.
No, that's the
first.
That's the solid waste. We're gonna have to wait.
Oh, okay. So for March.
We'll shoot for March, probably.
March.
So the first meeting in March?
First meeting in March.
We'll confirm that we got that scheduled. Resident interested in the planning board called to have his name removed. We did have a individual that expressed interest last meeting, but he has removed himself for that. So if there's anybody that would want to be considered to be on the planning board, I believe we still could use a couple of people for that. So if you all know of anybody that's willing to serve, like, it's usually pretty quick. It's less than an hour, twice a month. 6 o'clock. MMA elected officials webinar, January 25th, 2024, via Zoom. Diane, I assume that means you're attending?
Yep, that's correct.
That's the one that we all can't. Budget committee, January 26th at 3 p.m. I believe that's just an informational type of meeting. It's not actually discussing anything in particular,
That's correct.
just to kind of get regrouped a little bit. Is that correct?
It's a heads up to the budget committee about the special town meeting.
Right.
Select board executive session is scheduled for January 30th, 2024 at 6 p.m. pursuant with 1 MRSA 4056. That is personnel, dealing with personnel matters. We have a lot of things that have changed, a lot of staffing has changed, so we are using that time to discuss personnel matters in the office. So that's obviously not public, it's executive. Unpaid 2023 taxes will begin accruing interest as of February 1st, 2024. Dog licenses will increase by a $25 late fee as of February 1st, 2024. Planning board scheduled for February 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. MTCCA webinar on town meetings. Can we just talk about that?
Yes.
Okay, that's new business also. Again, I'm gonna attempt to attend. Okay, so we have a special town meeting scheduled for February 13th, 2024, before our regularly scheduled select board meeting. And that is to appropriate funds to cover expenses that were unforeseen.
Sure.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add to that, Sue?
Excuse me. Sure, the special town meeting is to ask townspeople to appropriate funds for a number of accounts. The social service appropriations from 2022 were never paid, so we need permission to take funds from the general fund to pay the social service agencies. We have about $79,000 in payroll taxes that have to be paid. Money's in the general fund, some reports were done, which money was just never sent out. We want to appropriate a certain amount of money for anticipated penalties for being 2 years late in some of the payroll reports, the quarterly filings. And then we're going to request about $15,000 to go put back into the salary account to cover, well, 4 of us in the office, and to cover additional salaries that was paid to the former employee who hadn't taken her raise over a couple of years, so it was all paid at once, but not budgeted. So that's what we're looking to do. Most of the money is in the general fund, it just hasn't been expended. Payroll taxes, mostly.
So are you ever gonna retire?
I'm hoping that next week is my last full week. And I know. But then Diane and I will come in and work Mondays. Just the 2 of us in the office is closed and start getting caught up on what needs to do. And then I'll come in for the bigger projects that we'll just do and teach as they go. But, so I hope so, yeah.
Okay, so that meeting will be on February 13th at 6 p.m. before our regularly scheduled select board meeting. So we'll start at 6 and then we will follow it with our select board meeting. And again, the Buckfield Sumner Solid Waste Committee meeting is scheduled for February 27th at 6 p.m. And following that, here at the Sumner Town Office, and following that it'll be a part of our select board meeting, but we'll address that issue first, and then move on with all of our regularly scheduled programs. So, I think.
There's also a policy committee meeting on Thursday too, and I noticed that wasn't on the agenda
I know,
last
yeah, I
time.
meant to say that is this Thursday at 6,
Yes.
correct?
This Thursday? Yes.
How often does the policy
So I guess we could put on, back up, before you open your mouth. Yeah, all right.
I guess that concludes our business here tonight. I make a motion that we adjourn.
And the time is 7:24. I seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.